Today we're looking at my selections for full sun environments in the landscapes. We will be filming at Packs Nursery on Highway 168 just outside of Boaz, Alabama. Packs Nursery has been a great friend of my horticulture program at Sneed State, and they've also been great friends of the channel. They have a second location as well in Gadsden, Alabama. If you are looking for quality plant material in and around Northeast Alabama, please check out Packs Nursery. So the first plant that I want to show you, this is a staple in a lot of landscapes. This is the dwarf Yaupon holly, Ilex vomitorio nana. And this is a native to the southeastern United States, so you could walk around in the woods and find your dwarf Yaupon holly. Some of the characteristics, so this is a full sun video, so this plant can take full sun, and it can get, I've seen these get 6, maybe 8 feet tall, but in the landscape they can stay pruned down in that 3 to 4 foot range pretty good. If you prune them 2-3 times a year, they'll stay a nice hedge for you if you wanted to make them into a hedge. They do make a nice specimen plant as well if you wanted to use them as a specimen plant. It is a drought tolerant plant as well. Once established, you really don't have to put any additional irrigation on this plant unless we're having a severe drought, and then maybe you'd want to put some supplemental water on it. This particular plant does not have any showy flowers. It has flowers, but it's inconspicuous. They are very small. One of the questions that I often get is, what's the difference between a Granada holly or a Yaupon holly and a boxwood? And I'm going to try to get in close and show you how you know you're looking at a boxwood or a holly. So a holly has what we call alternate leaf arrangement, so there's one leaf per node. And so the leaves will zigzag up the stem. So there's a leaf, we go up a little bit, there's a leaf, we go up a little bit, there's a leaf. If this were a boxwood, there would be 2 leaves directly across from each other. So that's how you tell the difference between a holly, what we're looking at here, and a boxwood. Let's move on to the next one. So this is the next one we'll take a look at for our full sun collection. This is your soft touch holly. So this is Ilex soft touch. This is a close cousin to the dwarf Yaupon holly. So they're in the same genus, and they have a lot of the same characteristics. So full sun, they are drought tolerant. You can make a hedge out of these. Here again, I don't know if these would make a great screen because they're actually a little bit shorter than Yaupon, probably that 3 to 4 foot tall range, and you could keep them pruned down lower than that. Here again, remember the difference between the boxwood and the holly is our leaf arrangements here. And so you can see here there's one leaf, and you go up, there's another leaf, and you go up, there's another leaf. They're not directly across from each other, but you can keep this one pruned really tight, and it's going to keep a nice, compact, thick, dense shape. Here again, just like with your dwarf Yaupon holly, this particular specimen will be drought tolerant as well. So if you're in an area that's limited on supplemental watering, this would be a good option for you. This is a tea olive, Osmanthus fragrens. This is one of my favorite shrubs to use for a bunch of reasons. So this makes a great screen, and in the fall of the year and some in the spring of the year as well, it has a very small white flower, but they are extremely fragrant. They have a very sweet smell to them. So if your neighbor had one, you would smell it in your yard. And hence that specific epithet of that scientific name, fragrens, Osmanthus fragrens. This is the fragrant tea olive. These guys, I've seen them get up in that 12 foot tall range. They do get fairly thick and dense if you prune them. If you don't prune them, they can get a little leggy on you. But this is an evergreen shrub that makes a great specimen plant. It makes a great screen. If you wanted a tall hedge, you could probably make a tall hedge out of this as well. And it is drought tolerant. So here again, if you're in a situation with limited supplemental water, this one might be a good option for you. So these are lilacs. Your genus is going to be Vitex. And you can see here, this is late August, early September, and these guys are in full bloom. Personally, this is one of my favorite plants to use in a landscape for a myriad of reasons. They can take this full sun, like you can see here. We're under a shade house, but there's no cloth over the top of it. They've done really well here in full sun all summer. Now I will say this, if you are south of a line, say I-20 south, so draw an imaginary line between Atlanta, Birmingham, and I don't know how far west that line would go. We can say out to Dallas. You may have to put this in a little more shadier spot, but as you get up further north, so if say you're let's say Chattanooga, Memphis, up north from there, this would be a pretty good option for you. You can see these nice purple flowers that grow out on the terminal branches here. This is a deciduous plant, and you can keep it in two different forms. What we see here is a shrub form, but if you wanted to, they're very easy to limb up. I've got one pulled out here on the side that we'll take a look at. So this one's already bloomed out. So if you take a look here, it wouldn't take much to cut these lower branches off and make this more of a tree form. So you do have two forms that you may see this in. So if you see this in the landscape, don't let it throw you off in terms of what you're looking at. What we're looking at here are daylilies. This particular cultivar is Stella de Oro, and I'll try to zoom in here a little bit. You can see some of the flowers here. So these are repeat bloomers. They do extremely well in full sun. Here again, once established, you need very little water on these. So if you're in a situation with limited water supply, this would be a good option for you. But you're not limited to Stella de Oro. There's over 60,000 cultivars of daylilies. And here at this particular nursery, they probably have 2 or 3 dozen. So you've got some taller ones here. They've got the ruby red stellas down here. I believe they have Happy Returns on the end. So Happy Returns is just a lighter color than Stella. And so most of your daylilies you see in the landscape will be deciduous. There are some evergreen daylilies, but regardless of cultivar, they do like the sun. So the more sun, the better on these daylilies. This is Loropetalum, also known as the Fringe flower. This particular cultivar, I've got to look here. This is a flowerwood introduction. This is called Carolina Midnight. The reason I had to look, there's dozens of cultivars of Loropetalum. There's dwarf Loropetalums that can stay in that 2 to 3 foot tall range, and then there's Loropetalums that can get 15 to 20 feet tall. There's red leaf Loropetalums, there's green leaf Loropetalums, but they all have a few characteristics in common. In general, this is a great full sun plant. They have these flowers, hence the name Fringe flower. To me, they look like little pink pom-poms, like something a cheerleader would have on a sideline. And if we look at the picture here on the tag, you can see the flowers here. So in the spring of the year, around May, they will get covered in these little fringy flowers. So this is a great plant. If you wanted to, the taller ones you can use as a screen. You can make a hedge out of any of them. If you wanted some color, a little bit of flavor in terms of flower, if you're trying to make a screen, and say that like a Yaupon holly or something like that's not going to do it for you in terms of the wow factor that it's going to bring to the table, this would be a good plant to look at. I'm looking off camera here, and we are getting some secondary fall blooms here, so you can see this from time to time, but they're going to be very small and not near as profuse as in the spring. So you can kind of see the flower. That one's not opened up yet, but that's going to open up, and that'll be the Fringe flower. This is Nandina, or heavenly bamboo, as some people will refer to it as. There's dozens of cultivars. This particular cultivar is Gulfstream, so there's some that stay dwarf. You can keep them in 3 to 4 foot range, and there's some that get really tall, 10, 15 plus feet. It really depends on the cultivar, but they're all going to have a few things in common. They are an evergreen shrub. And the unique thing about Nandina, and you can kind of see it on these outer leaves here, as we progress into fall and winter, these leaves will get a reddish or an orange color, and then as we get back into spring, those leaves will turn back green. So the leaves turn color here, but they do not drop in the winter. So that's something that's unique. Also, sometimes in the winter, depending on the cultivar, you may see a red berry on these as well. If you're looking for a shrub to just stick in the ground and forget about, where you don't have to really water it, it's not going to get a lot of disease, this would probably be something that you want to look at, Nandina. This is Abella grandiflora, or a lot of times you'll just hear it referred to as Abella. This plant it really depends on where you're at. If you're far enough south, this can almost be an evergreen. I've seen these down along the Gulf Coast in winter, and they have a fair amount of leaves on them. But where I'm at in North Alabama, so I want you to think kind of Chattanooga, Memphis, north, you can pretty much count on this guy being a deciduous shrub. So it really just kind of depends on the climate that you're in. This particular cultivar is called Kaleidoscope, and you can see it has some interesting foliage here. So the new growth kind of comes out this orangish color, and then as it matures, it still has this variegation in it. So that has some attractive qualities to it. This is a wildlife attractant. So you see these small white flowers on here. The bees and the butterflies love the flowers on Abella. So if you're looking for a shrub that can take some full sun, you want to attract some wildlife to the yard, this would be a good alternative. These can be dwarf or rather large. Here again, it depends on the cultivar. So this particular cultivar, if I'm not mistaken, is considered dwarf. It may get 4 foot tall or so, but there are others that can get, I've seen them 8, 10 feet tall in the landscape. But this is Abella. This is Spirea japonica, or just sometimes commonly referred to as Spirea or Japanese Spirea. This particular cultivar is double play candy corn, and you can see out on the terminal ends, it does have some interesting foliage in terms of that nice almost pink color new growth, and then as it matures, it's going to have more of this lime green growth. So in general, your Spireas are going to be kind of shorter. This particular one, you can keep the 1.5 to 2 foot range. It is a deciduous shrub, so you would not want to use this as a hedge or a screen. This is more of a specimen plant. But in the spring of the year, it is going to get some nice pink or purplish colored flowers. I guess you could call them lavender colored flowers. A really nice specimen plant. This is Spirea. Oftentimes we don't think of hydrangeas as being full sun, but there are a group of hydrangeas that can take full sun. This is Hydrangea paniculata bobo. This is a dwarf cousin. If you're familiar with limelight, it can take full sun. This is a dwarf cousin of limelight. So this particular cultivar is going to get in that 3 to 4 foot tall range, and where limelight can get very tall. I've seen limelight easily get over 10 feet tall. So this is the dwarf cousin of that one. These can take full sun, and you can see here they have these pretty white terminal blooms, and really they'll start blooming in May, June time frame, and they're going to bloom. They'll hold their flowers until September. So these are nice specimen plants. They are deciduous. They will drop their leaves in the winter, so that is something to consider. And really what you can do with these guys is when they bloom, you can cut them back pretty hard. You can prune them, and they will fill out and become more full, and the next year you'll have a few more flowers. But this is a good option if you're looking for some long-term summer color in the landscape. Your hydrangeas here again, your limelight and your bobo hydrangeas are going to be two that you want to look at. Guys, thanks for tuning in. If you hadn't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It really helps us out here on the channel. Until next time, this is the Plant Doctor.